Hello everyone, our topic this week was requested by Rick Witt. We'll be going over the Qunari from the Dragon Age franchise.
So first things first, a little bit of disambiguation. The word Qunari refers to two groups in Dragon Age's world of Thedas. To those outside of the Qunari culture, the term is almost always used to describe the tall, horned, muscular creatures that most of us probably think of when we hear Qunari. Inside of the Qunari culture, the term Qunari is applied to any follower of the Qun, the philosophy that shapes the Qunari way of life, which we'll go over in more detail shortly. For purposes of this video, we'll be talking primarily about the Qunari as a culture, including its human, elven, and dwarven members. As such, we will go over the Qunari, the creatures, first, and the remainder of the video will be focused on the Qunari civilization.
Okay, so the Qunari that most people think of are tall humanoids, around 7 feet tall or so on average, that have skin tones ranging from black and gray to bronze and paler colors, all with a vaguely metallic coloration. But their most striking physical trait is the fact that most Qunari are born with horns. In Dragon Age 2, most had 2 primary horns with a couple smaller tertiary horns, and in Dragon Age Inquisition, most simply have 2 horns, though it's worth noting that a handful of Qunari have had as many as 6 horns, and less commonly can be born without horns altogether. What leads to growth of multiple horns or lack thereof in a Qunari is unknown, and there is no indication that the number of horns a Qunari has any actual effect on their status in Qunari society, though it's worth noting that being born without horns is considered a sign that the Qunari in question is destined for great or important things. On average, Qunari are both physically stronger and tougher in comparison to other races, though it's also worth noting that all Qunari encountered in the games, and most under the media, have been warriors of one stripe or another, who are generally fitter and stronger than the average populace of any society. Despite or because of that fact, the Qunari are known in-universe for being bigger, stronger, and tougher than most other races. Their soldiers commonly wear a special brand of war paint called Vitar that reacts uniquely to their physiology. While Vitar acts as a contact poison to the other races of Thedas, when applied to the skin of a Qunari, the Vitar instead hardens the Qunari's skin, giving them a sort of natural armor in addition to whatever other armament they may be wearing. Finally, it's worth noting that the exact origin of the Qunari species is unknown, but multiple dialogue prompts throughout the games intimate the possibility that the Qunari were not always the creatures we see today. There are references to them being mistakes, experiments, and bearing blood that is not their own.
I like your horns, the Iron Bull, but they're dragon horns, not bull horns. You could have named yourself the Iron Dragon.
Oh. Language! That would have been better.
What exactly this means is unknown, though it's worth mentioning that according to Iron Bull, it's a not uncommon belief among the Qunari that they are somehow related to dragons.
Alright, so to understand the Qunari, we have to get the basic understanding of the Qun. The Qun is a philosophy bordering on the religion that is complex, detailed, and vast. The Qun dictates every aspect of Qunari culture, acting as the foundation for everything else the Qunari have built. In broadest and simplest terms, the Qun teaches that all things are connected, that the world as a whole is a single, giant living thing, and that everything in the world, from insects to people, are a part of that whole, with a purpose that should not be denied, lest that denial completely upend the entire system. This shows in their culture. Qunari society is broadly divided into 3 subcategories: the mind, the craftsmen and laborers, the soul, the spiritual and administrative functionaries, and the body, the military. The leaders of the mind, soul, and body form the triumvirate, the governing body of Qunari society. Every member of the Qunari, the triumvirate included, is treated as merely a part of the whole of society. When a child is born under the Qun, no matter their race, they are placed with other groups of similarly aged children and raised and educated together. There are no family units as we are familiar with them within the Qun. Instead, your family is whoever you end up working and living with. Qunari are tested and educated until they are 12 years old, at which point they are assigned a profession based upon their personal aptitudes. It's important to note that the Qunari are a people of efficiency and pragmatism. Qunari children are bred for specific roles. Soldiers mated with soldiers to produce more soldiers, textile producers with textile producers, and occasionally mixing to try and generate something else, and so on. However, no matter what a child has been bred for, their profession will still be assigned based upon their personal aptitudes, even if those lean away from what they've been bred to be. The child shows intelligence and tenacity in a fight, make them a spy. The child has an excellent understanding of flavor interactions, make them a chef. The child has a connection with animals, make them a husbandman, etc., etc. From these assignments, Qunari derive their purpose and pursue their lives. Indeed, Qunari names are based around their professions: first swordsman, head beekeeper, general, teacher, priest, etc.
Qunari society could be defined from a technical standpoint as a utopia, though we would argue it's a utopia achieved through at least vaguely dystopian means. Everyone and everything under the Qun has a place, a purpose, and is provided for. Food is made and distributed where it's needed. Goods are made and distributed. Buildings, tools, and fortifications are constructed. Borders are patrolled. Citizens are protected. Children and new converts are educated, etc., etc., etc. So long as everyone is doing their part, everyone has everything they need within Qunari society. It's when they don't do their part that things become interesting. Re-education is an important part of Qunari society. When someone is doing something or being something that they're not supposed to, they can be sent to temples of healing for re-education, in order to fix whatever is wrong with them. And the cultural teachings are such that people do this willingly as often as not. If someone assigned to be a stonemason finds themselves ill-content with their life, wishing for the life of a sailor, they go in for re-education and come out fine. If a soldier finds themselves wondering why they should keep fighting, they go in for re-education and come out fine. More concerningly, if someone begins to question the tenets of the Qun and won't be convinced of the benefits of the Qun and their place within the Qun, they are brought in for re-education and either come out fine or are never seen again.
Because of this, dissensions from the Qun exist, but as far as we know, it's next to non-existent within Qunari-controlled lands. Knowing that re-education is a standard practice, and that in all likelihood dissenters would be turned in for re-education by even their closest friends, who after all would be fearing for the dissenters' health and well-being, having been culturally taught that to go against one's purpose is to go against the very nature of reality and is inherently unhealthy. It seems more common for those who want to break away from the Qun to just do that. Break away. Tal Vashoth is the name given to those who desert the ways of the Qun. They are largely marked as ill and possibly traitorous depending upon the exact nature of their desertion. Tal Vashoth are not looked upon favorably by Qunari society, however the Qunari are two things above all else: pragmatic and efficient. Resultantly, it seems likely that most Tal Vashoth, if captured, would be put through re-education in order to avoid wasting resources, though exceptions exist. Tal Vashoth holding sensitive information, for example, may have assassins sent after them to ensure that no state secrets are shared with rival nations. And the children of Tal Vashoth are treated no differently than people of other nations not raised under the Qun.
Qunari relations with the other nations of Thedas are tense. The Qunari are smart enough to realize that the Qun would have little to no success spreading through simple proselyting or sharing of ideas. The reason for this is simple. The Qun works. It fulfills its function, which is to create order and equality in society. But to do so, it must be embraced by every member of that society. It can't be something that only half of the population adheres to or it falls apart. What's more, it's significantly easier to exist within the Qun if you're raised that way, rather than being converted. There are people from other nations who convert to the Qun here and there, mostly people from Tevinter, with whom the Qunari have actively been at war for generations. But the Qun is complex. There are literally members of the soul of the Qun whose job it is to know the details of the Qun to make sure it's followed, making it difficult for converts to ever fully assimilate into the Qun. Their children, however, have no such problem. Resultantly, the Qunari don't make allies so much as they conquer and assimilate other cultures. They take the best parts of any conquered society, technology, studies, and the like, and then dismantle everything to work properly within the Qun. Monarchies are thrown down, nobility and poverty are removed, families are ripped apart, with adults sent to labor camps to be educated in the ways of the Qun, and re-educated if they're stubborn, and children being placed with other groups of children as they would have been had they been born under the Qun. Those who integrate are evaluated and given a profession based upon their inclinations and skill set, just as they would have been if they were born under the Qun. These acts are not intended to be malicious. From the Qunari perspective, the world outside of the Qun is simply uneducated and misguided. Like many cultures, they believe their nation to be the greatest, wisest, and most in tune with reality. Other cultures aren't sick or wrong, they're simply misguided and uneducated. It is the Qunari's duty, therefore, to educate them, make their lives and futures better beneath the Qun, and improve the world as a whole as a result.
Though the Qun defines modern-day Qunari culture, the Qunari did not always have the Qun to guide them. More than a millennia ago, the Qunari were known as the Kossith, and they originally hail from somewhere beyond the Northern Sea. Thetis, the world of the Dragon Age games, is actually the name of a continent. All of the Dragon Age games have taken place exclusively on the continent of Thetis, with the occasional foray into the Fade. The Qunari come from elsewhere across the sea, presumably another unnamed continent. It is unknown whether the term Kossith referenced the Qunari species or was merely the name of the culture they once came from. But the difference is academic, because the word is basically extinct. After the adoption of the Qun, the Kossith became the Qunari. As previously mentioned, all races under the Qun are called Qunari. Elves, dwarves, humans, they're still called Qunari. As such, the Qunari have been Qunari so long that the term Kossith has fallen out of use. The word isn't taught to modern Qunari, and few outside of academic circles even know the term exists. Perhaps more importantly, no one would use or adopt it even if they did know it existed. The Horned Giants aren't Kossith any more than a Qunari dwarf is a citizen of Orzammar, the dwarven capital. They are all simply Qunari. Ask an elf under the Qun what they are called and they'll say Qunari. Ask one of the Qunari what they are called and they'll reply the same way. They are all, quite simply, Qunari, literally translated, the people of the Qun.
Before the rise of the Qun, Kossith traveled to Thetis shortly before the First Blight, but were completely wiped out by Darkspawn once the Blight erupted. They were not seen again until centuries later after the Fourth Blight had occurred, and by then they were going by Qunari, as the Qun had been adopted in full force back wherever they came from. And when the Qunari made their way to Thetis, they made sure that everyone knew they'd come. A large island off the coast of Thetis called Parvalan was where the Qunari first landed. It was taken over quickly and has remained the sovereign territory of the Qunari ever since, home to their capital, Qunandar. The Qunari took a couple of years to solidify their power base on Parvalan, and then they assaulted the entirety of the rest of Thetis, starting from the north. Their success was incredible. The Qunari are arguably the most technologically advanced civilization in Thetis. They consider magic and mages to be some of the most dangerous things in creation, and thus do not utilize magic nearly as much as the rest of Thetis' people do, but because of that, they have had to advance to greater heights in terms of science and technology than other societies. Notably, the Qunari have created Gatlock powder, which by all indication is the Dragon Age equivalent of gunpowder, and they are the only people to have use of it. Dwarves have created a similar substance, but they require the use of lyrium, which is basically pure crystallized magic, to create it. So they took the world by storm when they began invading with massive dreadnoughts and full-on cannon barrages. Over the course of about 150 years, the Qunari conquered, lost, and reconquered almost half of Thetis. It took the combined might of every other nation on the continent to push them back. Even Ravani pirates banded together, working with the nations of the continent to fight back against the Qunari, so great was the danger that the Qunari posed.
After just over 150 years, the Qunari signed a peace treaty with every other nation of Thetis, except for the nation of Tevinter. All nations who signed the treaty agreed to leave things in peace, with the Qunari maintaining ownership of Parvalan, but returning control of virtually all of their mainland holdings. Qunari converts from the last 150 years on the mainland would be treated differently depending upon where they lived, with some nations letting them stay, others forcing them off to Parvalan, and still others slaughtering them for fear of giving the Qunari military a foothold in the future. And so, most of the continent set about rebuilding after more than a century of continued war. The Tevinter Imperium, however, did not sign the Accords, did not attend the peace treaty, and continues to war with the Qunari to this day. The first Dragon Age game takes place almost another 150 years after the signing of the Accords, and by the end of the last Dragon Age game, nearly another 20 years has passed, meaning that in total, the Qunari and Tevinter have been at war for over 300 years, with no sign of either side giving up or being conquered in the near future. For reference, that is a war that has lasted longer than the United States of America has been a country.
And that's the story of the Qunari. one of the most powerful nations in the Dragon Age franchise. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like, and if you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like Rick Witt and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore or let's play, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.